Hello everyone and welcome back to Planet Coaster. We will be working on the corner around the main stage that we constructed last episode, putting in some details, putting some animatronics down. Not all of this is going to be on camera, as it took me a little while. I didn't sit there and just dedicate a whole bunch of time to record, so it was a lot of spread out kind of building as I was a little busy, but overall I think it was a pretty successful area of the park that we added. So we're going to be working on this overlook area, and some Renaissance Fair parks have these. The one in Maryland has one of these, and what they are, basically because these are built on slopes and there's also stages kind of spread out throughout the area, you're going to find that people may want to watch a show, but without having to actually go all the way down there. They may just want to poke their head in essentially and see what the show is before bothering to actually walk all the way down and around. And so these little overlook areas can be relatively common, as it gives people a place to stand off the main path just to look down and maybe enjoy a show from afar, as you know, the seating does get filled up on these things rather frequently, so giving people a chance to maybe just see a little bit of it as they walk through the park is always a good option. And this overlook is a pretty cool little feature. It's just, the view from it is really nice. You know, it's up on by the waterfall area. We got a little bit of a covered roof, a few little benches, and some plants. And yeah, so we got some detailing this episode. This episode, we want to finish the corner so that next episode we will be moving on to the castle. I felt like completing this corner is a good place to kind of stop going in this specific direction, as we want to get at least one of the main centerpieces done here soon, just so we can kind of establish how that's going to work, and it also will help define the lower areas as we move down and around the park. Now, obviously, I want to try and finish up these details with plants, using a little bit of the ivy on the ground can create some pretty cool effect in overgrowth areas. Also, we want people to actually come down to the stage. I was going to build this little information booth, almost like a ticket booth you could say, for like the show, but that was kind of blocking the view of the overhang area, and we moved it over to the right side, just out of the way, you know, a little bit more of a side piece just as you kind of come up to the area. Also, there's an ATM machine. It's really good to have just this whole little area with some shops, just something to bring people towards the stage, as it's not a functional piece. As we said last episode, it is 100% decorative. Even off camera, I actually built some few more elements that you guys won't get to see until the end. But the main bulk of today's episode are these two buildings. This first building here is just going to be a shop. The second building will be another shop. We need plenty of these souvenir shops, as in reality a park would have a lot of these. You know, it's very, very surprising that we only have 3 flat rides in this park totally right now, and everything else is a shop or a stage or a plaza of some kind. I think that's very, very interesting, as most people do probably a lot of rides, surround those rides with some shops, and make kind of 2 rides or so into a plaza, try and group those together. And I think that's a very theme park element, but we're not going for a theme park. People aren't coming here to ride rides. That's not what you go to a Renaissance Fair park. You come here to buy merchandise, you come here to enjoy the shows, you come here to dress up and have fun and get drunk. So, obviously, not as many rides, because a bunch of drunk people riding a whole bunch of intense rides means a whole lot of garbage that you don't want to pick up. Anyways, this structure here is pretty standard. There is a little bit of a jut out on the second floor, just to try and keep the building a little bit of a dynamic structure. A higher peaked roof, and then also a nice kind of 30-degree angled roof off to the side. It does merge into some of the other structures a little bit, but remember, we built that last structure as a little bit of a spacer as we wrap around and slowly start working our way down this hillside. It does present a challenge getting people into the building, because building on a slope, the path tool itself does not like that. And then also benches and stuff don't align themselves to the path on slopes. They actually get half sunken into the ground. Sometimes they float above the path, and it can look really janky. So you have to be careful doing slopes in Planet Coaster. I wish there was some type of way for them to improve that a little bit, but until they do, we're just gonna have to be careful and slowly work on these areas. A little bit of a decorative piece on that overhang there, using just the rounded bit of the wooden column support that has a little bit of a pattern painted into it. I do like to use those pieces for that element, as I feel like using just a plain wooden plank starts to get a little boring. Nothing wrong with it, it is still accurate, but you know, we do want to try and mix things up just a little bit over time. I've done so many variations, it feels like, of the same building that it's getting harder for me to slowly change things and to slowly kind of keep it still interesting. That's a challenge when you have one giant park, all the same theme. You're gonna run into these areas where you're just like, I've already built the structure. How can I make it different? And then overcoming those elements is a really good way to grow as a kind of a creative builder. You're going to be forcing yourself to do something more interesting, something that you haven't done before, or you run the risk of everything looking the same. It's a normal process. It can also be a little frustrating, so I hope you guys don't get frustrated yourselves when you're doing that. But again, we're trying to keep it a little campy. We're trying to keep it fun and slightly fantasy, but also believable. I just love keeping things believable. I don't shoot for 100% realistic. That is something that I feel like is it can be a little boring to do that, because you're instantly kind of limiting yourself. So believability for me is a little bit more important. We run into the whole, is this structure sound? Does it look sound to stand? That's what I mean by believability. You're not shooting for the 100% realism. You're just shooting for, well, they could probably build a structure with that, just don't know how much money it would cost to do so, but you could. We got some wooden trim, of course, going up and around. We added some of those rooftop elements on this building. We try and use those a little sparingly, as they can get a little repetitive to have that on every structure. I wish we had some more variants of it, like maybe some less pointed variants, or maybe some wooden variants, or possibly like a little white fence. Just different variations of everything. I think just the game will slowly get better and better as we have just more and more pieces to build with. So this is a large structure. Obviously, it's about 3.5 stories tall, probably, if you include the attic. And there will be another structure across from it. How we're having to hook this up to the road, because it's on that slope there, is we're actually going to have to run the pathing along the side, just so that you're not going to go into the building right off in the main path. You actually have to try and increase that to get up to the ground floor, and then at that point you can lure them into there. So that's why we have the staircase there. It's still a little weird to build facilities off the ground level. I don't know why that is with Planet Coaster, but trying to connect paths to like floating kind of these elements creates some major problems. The path wants to connect straight down to the ground. It just doesn't quite work, and I don't know why. I don't know if anyone else is having that issue, because I've seen people build some 2-story structures with a shop on a second floor, but maybe I'm the only one running into this problem, and I just haven't figured out how to fix it just yet. This new structure, obviously, it's going to have a spire. The middle of it is going to have kind of a balcony-like effect. A simple L-shaped structure for the remaining part of it, so it's a little bit of an interesting structure to kind of finish off the upper area on this side. A little bit more unique. I'm thinking back on it, I probably should have made the spire thinner, because it's an awful large spire element, but it turned out okay. we do go back in and change the colors of everything. This plaster look is a little plain and a little overdone, so we end up trying to change it green initially, and then we settle on an orange building. We don't have many of those. We already have a green structure anyways, but I'm sure we'll have to have 2, maybe 3 of those in the long run because our color palette is a little limited, just because it's not like a full color wheel. Standard building procedure going forward here, it just comes down to laying out the wooden details, trying to get those cross members in and little overhangs using these wooden pieces. I do like to use these for the overhangs just because the little wooden legs on them look pretty nice, and they look like they're actually helping support that structure. A small little dormer window at top, just to break up the roof line on one spot there, trying to keep it at least somewhat interesting. Now, it is interesting because of the roof line connecting to the tower there. We have kind of this awkward dead space, which you can fill in with just random bits of wood. You know, this isn't really a realistic pattern for anything. Made a little diamond shape there, even put a little wooden element to look like a large rivet in the center of it eventually, so that turned out pretty cool. I haven't really done that yet in any of my buildings. The lower area, gonna build some larger kind of wooden foundational supports here, just so it looks a little bit more grounded, a little bit more weighty. You want the bottom to feel very, very heavy, like it's a load-bearing wall. So that's what I shoot for when I'm doing this. And using the bottom of the columns, you can get really large of what looks like cross beams going through the whole building, and so that's kind of what I was doing there. Using some copy and paste to increase the efficiency of construction overall. It's always a good idea, but because not all these sides are the same, as it does merge into the spire on the left side, it's a little bit different. It's going to have a little wooden front porch there, just to keep it a little bit different from the stone kind of staircase on the right side, filling in the background with some trees and shrubs. Remembering, you know, this is still in the middle of the woods. It's not a fully cleared and well-developed area. It is definitely clashing with nature consistently here. The front, yeah, you know, some little shrubs and one of those smaller pine trees there. And then at this point, we will be changing the color of the building from green to orange. And I do like it. It's quite the striking color. And from a distance, it really suits the area. The view from this stage is probably another one of my favorite views right now, because you're looking out onto the benches and everything, and then you will see these buildings to your right up on the cliffside, and they look really, really nice from a distance and on ground level once you actually kind of see about human height and get to actually take in some of the details at that closer space. So, more wooden trim. I did cut out a lot of this episode just because I feel like we've done so much wooden trim that at this point I can't say much else about it. It's kind of just like it's more wooden trim. All the buildings are gonna have this. I could probably do stone trim if I really wanted to, but that's not really quite Renaissance fair enough. That would start getting in a little too far into fantasy maybe, or too far into maybe just castles in general. And these may have stone foundations, but they are still the plaster upper stories. When we get to the castle, we'll see what we can do to make it look a little bit different, a little bit more interesting. Changing the roof color from purple to more of a really light teal, just because, you know, brighter color from a distance definitely carries farther and makes the thing kind of pop out a little bit more. At this point, we will color the tower white. A little bit of an odd choice when I first did it, and in fact, thinking back on it, it wasn't good, so I ended up, at the end of this speed build section, making it orange, just like the main structure. I wanted to look separate, but I just couldn't think of a color to use that would go with the orange well enough, besides just more orange. Now the base of it is wider, using the kind of the castle battlements out of the plaster section. And that's just to make it look, as we said, more grounded, more load bearing, and a little bit more detailed around kind of the normal eye level. So let's go ahead and kick it over to Real Time Me. Okay, so welcome to the current state of things with all the wonderful greenery added and how everything is looking that we built this episode. I really like just the overall feel of our park so far. And just the overall height of these, they're almost like manor homes, these ones. These are definitely a little bit larger, a little bit nicer than some of the other ones. But they definitely cap kind of the last bit of shops on this path as you work your way down to the lower area. So we have two ways up here. We got two souvenir shops because souvenir shops, obviously, you can make some money on these. Now, I can't wait till they sell maybe a little bit more than just hats. You know, there's crowns, pirate hat, baseball hats. You know, I can't wait to see maybe if they ever add weather, possibly selling umbrellas, possibly selling some other souvenirs like pamphlets, shirts, things like that. But this is these two buildings that we built on camera today. And then over here, this is the little viewing deck for the stage. And some of the green space and just the little winding creek that's going to start going through our park. And plenty of green space here and some overgrown elements. Because it's so wet here, I'm trying to make it look very lush near the water's edge as we go through. And then down here. Now, I took your guys' suggestions and added some animatronics and made a little scene here. So maybe these pirates were fighting these guards and a dragon busted in for some reason. And now they're fighting all of these things. We're really limited by animatronics right now. There's not a whole lot of variation. I wanted to maybe do something with knights, but there's only one knight variant, and we might just move those to the castle rather than using them from this stage itself. But yeah, so we're just fighting an emerald dragon here. Threw up some props for these guys to hide behind, some barrels. It's almost like it's a small market square outside this large building itself. So that looks pretty cool. It gives us some background noise to listen to. Here is the little corner shop near the stage itself. I made a new stall variant using the tarps here. They sell some shields. They sell some pottery, of course, because that's about all that we have to offer. A little wagon, a little side trail that's slowly forming from people maybe taking a shortcut up through there to get into their seating areas. And definitely a whole bunch of shrubs in this area. So this over here, this is going to be one of the new flat rides. We will be trying to make some more shops and stuff around here. This is actually as far as the shops are going to go on this wing. So the shops are going to stop around this plaza here. It'll switch to games and things like archery ranges, throwing knife stalls, throwing axe stalls, little games, maybe a test your strength little thing. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. That's all that I was able to work on over the past day or so. Next episode, we'll be working on the castle. So I hope you guys are excited for that. If you guys enjoyed today's episode, feel free to leave a like so I know to keep going. And you guys enjoy this stuff, go ahead and leave a comment on what to add, change, fix, whatever you guys want. And until then, thank you guys so much for watching. And I'll see you guys next time in some more Planet Coaster.